I would like to invite our first set of speakers, Kamesh Rao, Product Manager at Step Foundation, and Railu Villa, Managing Director and Principal Architect at Sanketika Consulting. Over to you, Kamesh.
Thank you, Monica. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Kamesh, we can hear you.
Okay. So let me just share my screen. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Hope you have been following the Sunbird learning sessions. We have done few sessions earlier, and this is the third series. Especially, I would suggest that you go through the understanding of content architecture session, which we have done earlier. This is sort of extension of that. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Kamesh, we can see your screen.
Okay. Okay. So in this session, I and Railu will take you through the collection architecture, what a collection is, what are the various use cases, what are the capabilities that Sunbird provides in terms of managing collections, and the architecture behind that. So I think those of you who are following the Sunbird sessions would have been quite familiar by now with this uh, terminology. The Sunbird infrastructure generalizes the entire learning environments and use cases into three personas, three scenarios, and two interactions. Three personas being learner, instructor, and administrator, and the three scenarios being learn, help learn, manage learn. The learner learns, instructor helps the learner learn, and the administrator manages the learning processes. And the interactions between these personas can be broadly classified as learning and administration. We have also looked at in the previous sessions about the content architecture and even the Sunbird overview that assets form the building blocks to enable the different actions that are performed within this learning loop, right? It could be, for example, the assets could be explanation videos, simulations, or reading material which help, which are consumed in a learn action. It could be things like worksheets, activities, or actions which are the assets used to perform certain actions. And it could be certain events which can be used for interactions, either between the learners or between the learners and the instructors. And then we also have assets like surveys, assessments, so on and so forth, which can be used in the learning, in the sense action, right? So there are a variety of assets, whether it is content, question sets, actions, which can be used in terms of doing these actions. However, just imagine a scenario where you have created a learning system where a learner or an instructor comes onto the system and finds a variety of, let's say, videos, documents, simulations, worksheets out there, right? It kind of becomes quite a difficult task to navigate through them to find what is relevant to them at a given time, right? So there has to be certain context around these assets, and that's where organizing the assets becomes a very important uh, activity to enable that context, to give that context when somebody is accessing the assets, right? You can think of this as like food items, right? Where you have individual food items, but when you combine them into a, let's say, a breakfast or a lunch or a dinner, that's where you get the context, and that's where it is easy for the users to consume because they know what it is, right? In the learning context, we can think of many use cases, scenarios where this becomes important. For example, a teacher might want to, combine a set of activities and worksheets and give it as a homework to his or her students. Textbooks itself can become one of the ways to organize content, right? A student, for example, of class 8 comes onto the system, and if he or she finds a class 8 mathematics textbook and the content organized based on that, it'll be quite easy for her to navigate, and it also gives a structure of how the content can be consumed, right? Similarly, we can think of other scenarios like handbooks, which can be used by instructors, teachers, parents, so on and so forth. Or it could be lesson plans, which is a set of instructions and activities related to that combined and organized into a lesson plan, right? Or it could be, for example, courses, which can be organizing the content to train certain set of users. It could be instructors, or it could be even learners, right? And they take the course, and we can also probably even track the progress and so on and so forth. Interestingly, it can also be used in, let's say, managed learn scenarios where, for example, a DEO wants to see certain outcomes in the schools within his or her district. They might have certain observations or surveys to be conducted, and based on that, certain projects to be taken up by the various school heads, and then assess them again, right? So this entire sequence of actions and the assets related to them can be organized into certain programs, right? Where there can be a schedule defined, and these can be tracked using this program. So that's another completely different way of how you might want to organize assets. And there could be a generic collections like playlists, where you just uh, I would want to read these stories or complete these stories within a week. So you just combine it as a playlist and use it. So organizing the assets into certain groups becomes quite a important thing in learning contexts, and that's where we see how Sunbird infrastructure enables this. So in Sunbird, the fundamental object which enables this is a generalized collection object. This is quite similar to the other generalization that we have seen earlier, right? Of content or question sets, where the objects itself are generalized, and all the operations happen at the object level, and they can be extended to solution specific or domain specific categories to give the flavor, right? In the same way, a collection is the base object, which can be extended to define your solution specific collection categories. A collection is nothing but a multi-level hierarchical set of how you organize the assets. And the assets itself can be content, question sets, action sets, or in fact, it could be collections also. You can build collections of collections, right? And it need not be always having a hierarchy. It can be also a flat collection of assets, in which case your level will be 0, right? And all these are an ordered set of assets. So when we are talking about hierarchy of a collection, how do you define it? It is inherently organized as these multiple levels, and each level can have multiple folders, what we call as folders or nodes within a hierarchy, where you can specify at each level, right? What is the name, what is the label that you want to call that? It depends on your solution, right? For example, in case I'm creating textbooks as a collection category, it might make sense to have the folders named as chapters, right? The same thing, like if you are defining a program as a collection, or a course as a collection, chapters may not make much sense. So you can define what makes sense in the context of the business category that you are extending to, and it's completely configurable. Similarly, you can also define in your collection category, what are the maximum levels of the hierarchy, right? For example, I might restrict that my course object cannot have more than one level, right, for example. Or you can say that my collection category of textbook doesn't have more than, let's say, 3 levels, right? So these are certain things that can be configured while defining a hierarchy. And a hierarchy, you can have actually 0 or more folders within each level. Moving on now, linking assets. One or, in fact, 0 or more assets can be linked under a given folder, and the linked assets are ordered. So when you are creating the collection and linking the assets, you can specify the order in which they have to be, linked, right? And that order is maintained throughout. Even for when you're consuming the collection, users will be consuming it in that order. And same asset can also be linked to multiple folders within the same collection or across the collections. Of course, the same asset cannot be linked more than once in the same folder because it's a set, right? And it doesn't make sense to also, have the same asset linked twice in the same folder. And like I have mentioned earlier, asset can be of any object type, which includes a collection. And the type of objects that you want to link at a given level can also be configured or defined, right? For example, if you are creating a collection category, which you call as a question paper, right? And all the objects within that question paper collection, you might want to restrict to be questions or question sets, right? So that's something that you can configure as part of the collection category definition. Moving on, the metadata, I think we have seen in the previous sessions where we have gone through in detail of the metadata model that Sunbird supports. It's a rich variety of metadata that can be tagged to the assets in order for them to be better discoverable. And also it gives the additional information about that asset, right? For example, the name, description, the keywords, or learning outcomes, or topics, to whom is this asset targeted towards? It's for teachers, or it's for students, it's for teachers of Maharashtra or certain organization. These are certain metadata that can be tagged for any asset, which we have gone in detail in the previous content architecture session. All those also apply to a collection, which is also one of the fundamental objects. So all those attributes are applicable to collection also. On top of that, collection specifically can have metadata at 3 levels. One is at the collection level itself, like what I have mentioned. At each folder level also, we can have certain metadata attributes that can be defined, right? For example, when you are defining the digital textbook as a collection category, and your chapters are the folders within that, each chapter can be probably tagged with certain set of learning outcomes or topics which are taught in that specific chapter, right? So in that way, a folder level metadata also becomes quite useful. And a set of attributes can also be defined when you are actually linking the asset to the collection, to a folder in the collection, right? That means that attribute is very specific to that relation that is defined between that asset and the collection to which it is linked to, or the folder to which it is linked to. We'll see an example of how this can become, in what scenarios this could be useful when we look at certain examples. All these Metadata attributes are driven by the configuration in terms of when you are defining your collection category. You can define the set of attributes at each of these levels. And the editor's collection editor uses this configuration to display the relevant attributes to the users when creating or modifying the collection. So let's look at certain examples which we have discussed already. For example, a digital textbook. You can define a digital textbook as a collection category. And for example, define saying that it will have 2 levels of hierarchy. My first level is called as chapters. Second level is called as units, right? It's just an example. You can even define it as 3 levels and call the first level as chapter, second level as unit, and the third level as subunits, right? And then you can also specify what type of assets you want to link in a digital textbook. It could be content, it could be question sets, and maybe you can say that I would want to just restrict it to content, question sets, and some other type of objects. Another example, so this textbook, if you look at the digital textbook, it can represent the table of contents of a physical textbook, right? And the hierarchy essentially represents the table of contents of the textbook. Another example could be like what we have seen, what we have been talking about, a digital course, right? Where digital course organizes the course material as a collection. And you can again define the hierarchy to be restricted to, let's say, 1 level. And I want to call them as module, right? Instead of chapters or units in a digital textbook. Whereas in addition, there are certain other behavioral attributes that can also be added. Again, these are not actually specific to course, like trackable. You can define a collection as a trackable or not. We'll have a separate detailed session on what trackability is and how you can add certificates to assets. These are not specific to collections. You can actually make any asset trackable and also associate certificates, which are digital certificates given to the users who complete that consumption of that asset, right? A course is a very good example where this can be done, where you can specify that a collection is, a course is a trackable collection, in which case the progress of each user who consumes that course is tracked, whether how much percent is complete, whether it's completed or not, and so on and so forth. Here, one where I mentioned as an asset level relational attributes comes to use. For example, let's say you're creating a course and added certain reference materials, videos, assessments, right? But when you're tracking the progress of the course, you want to, let's say that a user has completed this course when they watch the video, complete watching the video and complete taking the assessments, right? The reference materials, you may actually don't want to track it, right? Because this are reference materials for the information of the users. So when you are adding the assets to the course, you can actually specify whether that resource, that asset has to be trackable within this collection or not, right? So that's an attribute that is a relational attribute between that asset and the collection at that time of linking, right? And that's where the system then knows that, okay, these are the set of assets that needs to be considered while tracking the course, right? So that's an example of how a relational attribute between the asset and the collection can be useful. Moving on, again, another example of a collection could be just a flat list where you specify there are no subfolders. The hierarchy levels is 0. It could be just a collection of, let's say, stories, worksheets, or activities, whatever it is. right? A typical example use case could be a teacher creating a homework. You may not really need to have any hierarchy within that, right? So that's another example of how you can define a collection category. Moving on to the life cycle of a collection. Again, this is quite similar to any asset, like the content or question set life cycle that we have seen in our previous sessions, where we have gone through in detail, right? An asset, when it's created, it would be in draft state, then it moves to review state, then after review, it can be published. And once published, when it comes back, if you modify it, a new version of that is created. All that exact life cycle also applies to a collection object. On top of that, there are couple of things that need to be specifically taken care in terms of collection. Is linking assets to a collection or removing assets from a collection is also considered as a modification to that collection. So the collection has to be in draft mode when you want to do these operations. And similarly, when a collection is published and made live, all the assets linked to that collection have to be also published. Right? You cannot have, for example, a collection which is in live state, but has a link to a asset which is in a draft state. It's a kind of an invalid state, right? So that's something that needs to be taken care to ensure that you don't end up with such scenarios. When publishing a collection, all the linked assets also have to be in published state. Another capability which is has certain specific connotations in terms of collections is what happens when you copy a collection. Again, copy is an operation that is that you can do for any asset. You can let's say copy a content, copy a question set. A separate copy is created, right? In case of collections, however, there are two different ways of ways of copying. What we call as one as deep copy and a shallow copy, right? When you do a deep copy of a collection, the entire hierarchy, right, from the root to all the folders within that, the links are also created as a new copy. Of course, the assets themselves are not copied when you are copying the collection, because that would completely bloat the system, right? So the same assets will be linked to these two different copies of the collections. What does this mean is that when you create a deep copy of a collection, when the original collection changes, right? Let's say you add certain assets, remove assets, add some folders, none of those changes reflect in your copied collection. So these two are completely separate objects now. However, in case of shallow copy, what happens is only the root is copied, and then the entire hierarchy it points to the same original collections hierarchy. Okay. What does it mean? When you create a shallow copy, you can modify the root metadata, right? The name of the collection, description. Let's say you can have icon which is displayed, right, when you are consuming. Those things at a collection level can be modified to the new copy. But the entire hierarchy and the contents or assets linked are pointing to the previous original collection. So any changes that happen to the hierarchy or assets linked is automatically reflected in the shallow copy automatically, right? Where does this become useful? One example is where like Diksha is one of the biggest adopters of Sunbird. I'll give an example where that is used there. So NCERT publishes textbooks, right? Publishes textbooks in Hindi and English, and certain states adopt those textbooks as it is. Okay, but they might have their own name and their own cover page printed, but the entire chapters, content, everything within that textbooks is same as NCERT, right? So when NCERT creates these digital textbooks with the hierarchy of the textbooks and links certain digital assets content to that, the states who adopt these NCERT textbooks then can create a shallow copy of these digital textbooks and give their own name, their own icon, which is the cover page, and so on and so forth. But it exactly points to the same NCERT textbook hierarchy and the set of content. So as and when NCERT, let's say, changes the contents, let's say new content is added and existing content is improved, all that can be automatically gets reflected into the state's textbooks, the shallow copied books automatically, right? This way, you can avoid the duplicacy of work across all the states, but still have its own identity when users come. They don't get confused, like if they see NCERT textbooks, they might get confused, right? They can see their own state textbooks, but still it points to the NCERT textbook. So this is a with respect to copy, these are the specific functionalities of a collection. Moving on, we have several tools. For example, we have a collection editor by default, which comes as part of Sunbird. It's a generalized editor which can be used to create any type of collection objects, right? The editor doesn't know whether it's a textbook or a course or some other collection. It just knows it's a collection. And all the behaviors that we have seen, like what we have talked about, like how many hierarchy levels can it have, what type of assets can be linked, so on and so forth, is completely driven by the configuration only. And it also has different functionalities, like you can search and add existing assets, link existing assets. You can create a new asset and then link it automatically, etc. And it also has extensions like add-on tools. For example, you can create the entire hierarchy either through the editor using the editor UI, or you can create that offline in a CSV file where you specify these are the entire set of folders that I want to create, and just upload it once and get it automatically created. So these are certain add-on tools and which can also be extended further. We also have a collection player that comes with all the reference apps, mobile, web, as well as desktop, where it supports navigation of these collection hierarchy to access the assets. These collections can also be downloaded like any other assets. However, there's a slight optimization that we have, which I'll just tell it in the next slide. There's another thing which is very specific to collections, which is also useful capability, is the consumption of assets through a collection is exclusively tracked, right? By that, what I mean by that, let's say, for example, a video is linked to two different collections, right? Collection 1 and collection 2, and both collection 1 and collection 2 are trackable, let's say, okay? And this video, when I'm adding to each of these collection, also I mentioned that this is a trackable asset within this collection, okay? Now, let's say I go to collection 1 and access the video and play the video through collection 1 navigation, right? But not through the collection 2 navigation. Okay, so the system knows that in the collection 1, I had made progress by playing this video, right? Whereas in collection 2, I don't have the progress because I have not seen this, access this video through this collection. This especially is going to be useful when the same set of let's say assets are used to create courses, like what we saw as an example, by two different states altogether, right? Then it obviously makes sense to track the progress separately, right? So that's one useful capability that we have in terms of consuming assets through collections. Like what I mentioned, there is a certain flexibility that is provided in terms of downloading the collections. By default, when a collection is downloaded, the entire set of links, assets links are not downloaded. It's only the metadata and the structure which gets downloaded. Because if you download the entire assets, like a collection might have, let's say, 100 assets, 100 videos, and it might become a problem in the device space, right? So it only downloads the structure and the metadata, and the users can have the flexibility to download the content as and when they want to consume it, and then once consumed can also be deleted. So this kind of gives a nice way of how users can manage their device space, but still consume the content offline. Right? Last but not least, another useful capability is linking dial codes. Again, this is not specific to collections as such, but can be done to any asset. However, linking dial codes to a folder within a collection has its own advantages. So what can be done is the dial code can be created, generated, and linked to a folder within a collection, and you link assets to that folder, right? So there is no direct link between the assets and the dial code. The dial code is only linked to the folder, and the folder is linked to the assets. Now, when that dial code is published as a QR code in a textbook, and the user scans the QR code, system automatically gets all the assets linked to that folder and shows it for consumption, right? So what this enables is the printing of the dial code can happen on the textbook. QR code can happen one time, but the assets that are linked to that, let's say for a chapter within a textbook, whoever is publishing the digital textbook and the assets can keep on improvising, the content linked to that chapter as and when required. And there's no change required in the printing or the physical QR code as such. Right? So this is quite a useful feature which is also being used extensively in our Sunbird adapters. Yeah, so this pretty much covers the specific capabilities that a collection in the Sunbird has. We have seen what are the various use cases where collection can be used, and the various capabilities that the Sunbird provides. Now we can move on to how this actually is designed, architected in the Sunbird, and I request my colleague Railu, who is one of the principal architects of Sunbird, to go through this. Over to you, Railu.
Thanks, Kamesh. I'll share my screen. Just give me a minute. Okay. So the screen, it's visible, right? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning. So in this earlier session so far, you have seen the various capabilities and the possibilities using Sunbird collection infra. I will now take you through the architecture that powers this collection infrastructure in Sunbird. So as Kamesh said earlier, there is a lot of things common between collection and content architecture. So I would like to do a quick recap of the content architecture that was covered in the previous episode of Sunbird learning sessions, and then move on to the collection specific things. So if you look at the content architecture, there is this content model at the core, which enables the configurable and extensible schema and content categories. Then we have the content repository, which uses this content model and comprises of the content objects, their data, metadata, and the relations. Then there are APIs for management of content repository and the content model. Then we have an event processing pipeline that allows you to extend the content behavior by adding new jobs to the pipeline. We have tools for creation and consumption, and there are reference apps with workflows for sourcing and consumption. And finally, all the apps, tools, everything in this content architecture generate telemetry data, which is used to derive insights and enrich the content back again. So as I said, the reason for doing this recap is that collections are also enabled in Sunbird using the same architecture. All the building blocks are same. It's just that uh, we just added a collection model and collection repository to the same infra to enable collections in Sunbird. So now we'll now look at some of these constructs again to understand how they are used for collections. And after that, we'll also look at the aspects of collection architecture that are different and not there in content. To start with, similar to content model, collection model also powers the configurability and extensibility of collections. The collection schema can be configured, which includes the metadata attributes, relations, and the config. Uh, then we can also configure category definitions that specific to a domain or a use case. You have seen examples of different collection categories like textbook, course, playlist, when Kamesh was presenting the capabilities. All those can be configured in the collection model as categories. So let's look at an example now. So every Sunbird instance can define its own collection model. So same way, exactly the same way like how it can define its own content model. So if you look at an example collection model, it has the attributes, which can be configured by providing the name of the attribute, data type, required flag, range of values, and validations if any. Then other thing in the collection model is that the relations can be configured to specify what object types can be added as members in a collection. In this example, we are saying content and question set can be added to a collection. Other types of relations with other object types can also be configured. Then there are a bunch of configuration parameters that can be defined for collection objects for some specific behavior, all those things. Then we can have the category definitions of collections. If you see this example, we have a course definition at system level with a behavior that says that all courses, all collections of category course, the tracking is enabled, but an auto batch creation is disabled for course. Tracking and batch creation are the features, special features which enable user progress tracking. We will cover all those in detail in a separate session. But here I'm just showing how we can configure the different behaviors for a collection object using categories. The same category course can be overridden by a specific tenant saying that all courses should be trackable, yes, and also auto create a batch whenever a course is published. So that is how different levels of category definitions can be configured in a collection model. Similar to content, multiple storages are again used for collections also. This thought process is basically driven by identifying the optimal storage structures for different parts of content and collections. So this basically makes the storage and retrieval very efficient. So if you see here the different data stores, we have a graph store that is used to store collections, objects, metadata, and relations. We have an external store that is used to store attributes that have large values. This is because graph databases are not efficient to store large values. Hence, a different data store, in this case, Cassandra is used. We have a search index, which is used to index data in a Solr-based index. This enables a flexible search capability of our collections. And finally, there is a blob store that is used to store media files, media assets used in collections. Moving on. In addition to the content collection model, content model, and the storage, there are multiple other common architecture principles and constructs used across content and collections. We'll quickly go through those. The first one is ontology driven. We have one ontology graph for all assets, collections, and taxonomies. What this enables, similar to what it enables for content, is that a collection can be linked to different sets of assets, any asset that is in the graph As long as it is in the graph, it can be linked to the collection. And that asset could be from the same taxonomy or a different taxonomy. Then this whole architecture is event-driven, where there is a pipeline where all the collection processing events are published. We can add jobs to subscribe to those events and implement behavior to enrich the collection's capability. It's again API driven. We have collection management APIs, search APIs, category management APIs, all the behavior exposed as APIs. There is an extensible data pipeline and a data products framework that allows you to build and deploy new data products and derive new insights on the data generated during collection consumption. There are some data products already provided by Sunbird for summary, computation, usage, and other details, but this framework is extensible to add more data jobs. Then we have editors and layers which are configurable, extensible, and embeddable in other apps for the creation and consumption purpose. Then this multi-app strategy is followed where there are separate apps for sourcing and consumption workflows. So far we have seen the common architecture that drives both content and collections in Sunbird. In addition to this, there are certain aspects to collections that differentiates them from content. So let's look at what is that. So the most important aspect of collections is its hierarchy. What is hierarchy? It is the manner in which the folders and assets within a collection are organized. This is referred, we call it as the hierarchy structure. This hierarchy structure is stored as JSON data in a Cassandra database. Although all the units in the hierarchy can be stored as nodes in the graph and connected by relations, we decided or we chose to store the hierarchy as a single block of data in JSON format. The main reason to do so is frequent updates to hierarchy and retrieving the complete hierarchy while editing modifications are in progress will be a lot faster and efficient with this approach. And along with the hierarchy, all the intermediate folders in the collection are stored within the hierarchy JSON and do not exist in the graph as separate nodes. However, these folders are indexed in the search index, which still allows you to search and access these folders via the search API. So to strike a balance between the efficient modifications and efficient retrieval, this approach is followed where the hierarchy is stored as a JSON, but at the same time the folders are indexed in the search index to enable search and discovery of folders. Okay. So just going a bit deeper, this behavior of hierarchy is not implemented specific to the collection object type. This behavior is implemented for the collection MIME type. So this collection MIME type is one level lower than the object type. What it means is that we can create a new object type with MIME type as collection, and those objects will get the hierarchy behavior. So for example, we can create, the question set, which we have covered earlier in one of the sessions, uses this collection MIME type, and there will the hierarchy behavior is available for the question sets. Same way, I can introduce a new object type called event set of MIME type collection and add event objects in it, and the hierarchy behavior is available for event set objects also. We will see more about event sets in the next session about interactions that uses this collection MIME type, generic implementation of this collection MIME type. Okay. So what does this collection MIME type enable? It provides the following behaviors. The concept of hierarchy structure, which we saw in the previous slide, and management of the hierarchy folders by storing them in the hierarchy JSON and indexing them for such capabilities. This MIME type has APIs to create, update, and read hierarchy data, which can be used by any object type like a collection, question set, or an event set. Then finally, another behavior of this collection MIME type is a special type of eCal packaging. eCal, as we saw in the previous sessions, is a special type of packaging to support offline consumption. We will talk about this spine eCar in the next slides, coming slides. So as said, the behavior hierarchy is not linked to collection object type, but to the collection MIME type. And this MIME type can be applied to any new object type being defined in the Sunbird infrastructure. And due to this generic implementation of hierarchy at a MIME type level, it is possible to create a generalized hierarchy editor. For example, we are currently in the process of developing this generalized hierarchy editor that can be used to create and manage any objects that are hierarchical. That is the MIME type fields collection. So this editor is driven by a config which provides the info of object type, the hierarchy structure, like for example, how many levels of folders are allowed, what type of assets are allowed, the form definitions to enter the edit and add forms within the editor. It has a set of generic plugins like hierarchy plugin to manage the hierarchy structure, a form plugin to enter the forms, and a search plugin for searching assets in the asset repository and linking them to the collection. So all these are generic enough and can be used for any object type which is using the collection MIME type. In addition, the hierarchy editor can be integrated with other editors like a question editor or an ECML editor, interactive editor, or an upload editor to create assets from this hierarchy editor and link it to the collection. This is a work in progress item. Currently, question editor integration is ready, and other editors integration will also be enabled soon. So I referred to that special type of eCar packaging for hierarchical objects in the previous slide. So if you see, a normal content eCar contains both the metadata and artifact of the content inside it. Doing the same for collections will result in very large eCar file sizes and will impact the bandwidth and disk space in the clients, like for example in a mobile device or in a desktop. So to optimize this, the platform generates only a spine eCar for collection MIME types. This allows the clients to download only the hierarchy structure and render it to the user without much bandwidth and storage usage. So the required asset artifacts can be downloaded on demand or in a queued fashion which can be decided by the client. It need not be enforced because of the full eCar. So this collection MIME type, the hierarchy structure, hierarchy folders, the hierarchy APIs, and this eCar packaging are the additional behaviors added on top of the existing Sunbird asset infra to enable the behavior of collections. So as we said, these are the this is what powering the collection architecture. And I hope this session helped you to get an understanding of the collection architecture and enables you to imagine the possibilities you can do with this. We also welcome you to contribute enhancements to collections, for example, in building the generic hierarchy editor or creating a generic hierarchy player or in any other area. So thank you for joining. Monica, over to you if there are any questions.
Thank you, Railu. So this question is for Kamesh. What is the workflow when an asset linked to a collection is modified? Is it reflected within the collection automatically?
Okay, so yeah, that's an interesting question. So let's say you have a collection and assets linked to the collection, and now the collection is live, the assets are also live. When asset is, the creator of the asset, the owner of the asset goes and modifies the asset, a new version of the asset is created, right? Now, I think the question is, what will happen to the collection? Whether will it point to the new version or will it point to the old version? We actually have seen multiple scenarios where in some cases it might make sense to automatically show the updated latest version. Whereas in certain scenarios, it makes sense to retain the old version. So it's kind of flexible, where the collection can either point to the old version, or you can point to the new version also. It depends on your solution, how you want to adopt. You might want to say that I would want to automatically update the latest version, or still point to the older version. It's up to the solution.
Kamesh, the next question is for you. Is it possible to organize different types of assets in a collection?
Yeah, I mean, the collection itself is the whole purpose of the collection is to organize assets in multiple ways, right? Like what we have seen. It essentially gives a way of organizing it in a hierarchical way, where you can define the hierarchy, and any level in the hierarchy can actually be linked with the assets. Yeah.
The next question, Kamesh, again is, how flexible is Sunbird to make changes to the collections or assets inside the collection metadata as per the adopter's need? Just part 2 of that question is, do we have free data set cells to be used for personalization to service?
If I understand the question correctly, I think the question is, let's say if I am adding certain assets to the collection, how will the metadata of those assets, is that something which is extendable or configurable? Absolutely. So that's the whole intent of this generalization, where the assets can have their own metadata. So when you are creating an asset, for example, like a worksheet, you can specify that these are my attributes or metadata attributes of this worksheet. Or you might create a completely different asset, like a project, for example, which can have its own metadata. And when that is linked to the collection, again, like what we have seen, a collection can define what type of assets that can be linked to it, right? And when you are adding that to the collection, the asset itself will have its own metadata. But also you can additionally give certain metadata when you add it to the collection, and that what you want to give is also part of the collection category definition, which is what is used to drive that.
The next question is, can I allow different versions of content in a collection? So collection A has version 1 and collection B has version 2. What if the author of a collection may not want the latest edit or the latest version of the content?
Yeah, I think I had answered this in the earlier question, where the version of the asset that is linked to a collection can be controlled based on your need, right? So yeah, if you would want to have the collection with the previous version, yes, it can by default point to the previous version. And only if you want to update it explicitly, you may provide the users to edit the collection and say, now I want to get the new collection, right? So it's up to what you want to enable in your solution.
What are some of the data fields collected here in regards to collection, and what are some of the insights an adopter can hope to derive?
Can you come again? I didn't get the question.
What are some of the data fields collected in regards to collections, and what are some of the data insights an adopter can derive?
Okay. So I have touched about briefly in my when we went through the session, the data that can be derived out of the consumption of a collection can be 2 levels. One, the collection itself, if I'm accessing, how many people have accessed the collection, how much time they have spent on navigating the collection, or it can also be at an asset level, right? Where how many assets within the collection are accessed, how much time each asset is accessed within that collection, is also something that the data can be defined and tracked. And as I said, if the collection itself is a trackable collection, the system also has tools to identify the progress, the overall progress of the collection in terms of how many the assets have been consumed within that collection.
Thank you, Kamesh. Railu, the question is for you. Is there any size limit on the number of assets that can be linked to a collection?
Yeah. So the size limits are dependent on how much infrastructure you can add to support the collections. Let's say if there are 10,000 assets linked to a collection, we need bandwidth and APIs infrastructure to support that much. But having said that, it's definitely recommended to limit the size of collections in a Sunbird instance. And we have tested until adding 1,500 to 2,000 assets to the collection. That is something Sunbird has certified and tested.
The next question is, can you explain the direction in relation with respect to collection and content?
So the direction is a concept of a graph. So in a directed graph, so in a graph, relations can have a relation can exist between two nodes, and a relation has an attribute what is the start node and what is the end node of a relation. Taking an example of a membership relation, in a membership relation, the start node is the collection and end node is the content. So the direction from collection to content is out, whereas the content to collection is in. So that's what the direction is meant for. Yeah.
The last question is, can you talk about the solution aspects to add, edit, manage collections?
Solution aspects. Kamesh, you want to talk about it? Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, that's a good question, because let's say the Sunbird is providing the tools and infrastructure, right? Now, if you want to build a solution on top of it, the first thing that you would do as a solution creator is to identify in your solution what are the entities which make sense to create as collection, right? So the first thing is to define those entities which are collections, which you can name those as based on your solution needs. That's number one. Number two, once you define them, like the names, right? For example, like what some of the examples that we are seeing is you define a course, a digital textbook, or a program. Each of these are your collection categories. Then the next level of what you do is for each of these collection category, what we call, what is the behavior that you want to enable, right? Whether how much of hierarchy that each collection can have, what type of objects can be linked. This is what you define as a category. So once you define these collection categories, you're actually pretty much ready with your solution as with respect to collection. You don't need to do any code changes as such to enable any of your solution specific collection categories. Once these collection categories are defined, the system, what the solution that you can create, you can either use the editor tool, what is inbuilt. What can be done is, if you use that editor tool, the creators can come in. When they open the collection, I mean, when they try to create collections, they see these different types of collection categories that you defined in your solution. They can, select the collection category that they want to create. They open the editor, they create the hierarchy as per the definition, and start linking assets. This can be either, done by one person who is the owner of that collection, or, you can outsource creating the assets to multiple people, and then finally, add these assets and link it to the collection. So there are two steps in creation of collection. You create the hierarchy itself, definition itself, and then you create the assets and then link it to them. And this can be either top-down approach or a bottom-up approach, which means that I have already a set of assets. I want to aggregate them into one collection. You can do that, or it could be top-down, which means that first I create the structure, I create the entire structure of the collection that I want to have, all the folders, so on and so forth. And then I start creating assets and linking it to that. So it can be done in both top-down and bottom-up approaches.
Just the last question is, does platform allow for custom packaging of collection today, or is it only eCar as package?
The platform currently provides the eCar package out of the box, but it is possible to create different packages using the APIs provided by the platform, because the hierarchy API gives the complete structure that can be used to generate different types of packages.
For example, I think SCORM could be one possible extensions which can be supported.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kamesh. Thank you, Railu.